Hey guys, Sock here, welcome back to the channel. Season 7 is upon us, and after a few days of play, I think it's time we take a look at the current state of legend balance and the meta going forward for the season. We have a totally new map this season, so I'm going to do something a little different than previous tier lists and really weigh heavily how each Legends kit plays on the new map. Olympus is introducing huge points of interest with tons of verticality and different routes to take, while also having a lot more open space than previous maps. These things are important to keep in mind as we look at legend balance because fights aren't necessarily going to play out the same way they have before. A final quick note before we start, this is not a competitive tier list. Competitive play has its own meta that is heavily focused on rotations and late game fights. There's plenty of crossover between the two metas, but just keep in mind that this is meant for casual and ranked gameplay, not competitive matches or scrims. We're going to start this season down in D tier. I don't think there's any legend that's complete trash in the current state of the game, so we're going to politely skip on over F tier this time, but we do have two legends that are just really struggling to keep up right now. Ironically, the first legend that can't keep up is Octane. Our poor old speedy boy just got a great buff to his health regen, which he's needed for a long time, and when I read the initial patch notes, I was thinking maybe for once Octane wouldn't be one of the worst characters in the game. Then I got on and played Horizon and realized she outclasses him in every way. Horizon has better air control and doesn't stumble when landing from height, two things that have plagued Octane since day one. Her active is a flat out better version of his ultimate on a shorter cooldown. That being said, he's still a ton of fun to play and the new regen speed makes constant stemming much less punishing, but this poor guy can't catch a break. Our second D tier legend is Rampart. Rampart showed up season 6 and fizzled out pretty fast as soon as everyone learned not to stand in front of her turrets. She's also received some nice quality of life changes with faster wall deployment time and faster spin up on her ult this season. While it's a ton of fun to go full Halo and throw a Sheila on the back of a Trident like we're back in Blood Gulch, it's not actually very practical without any kind of aim stability. There are some good high ground locations you can fortify as Rampart if you're proactively rotating around the map, and that alone keeps her out of the F tier for me. The biggest issue is that good teams just aren't going to die to a Rampart setup, and you have to invest a lot of time and energy into setting up properly to be locked down into one small area. There's a lot of area denial and disruption in the game now with how prevalent Horizon will be this season, and it doesn't take much to ruin a Rampart setup with her ult. Moving on up to C tier, we've got our middle of the pack legends. Nothing wrong with these guys, but nothing that really makes them stand out either. First up we have Loba. Loba received a great change with Season 7, you can now pick up unlimited ammo from her ultimate. I didn't think this would change her that much, but after playing a few games on her, I was actually really impressed with how much it streamlines the experience. It's on a very short cooldown now, so basically every fight you can throw it down and get whatever ammo you need, and that is super convenient. Her active ability is where she falters though, and that is what's keeping her from being higher on the list. Pathfinder and Horizon have great mobility with their actives, but Loba for some reason is forced to be completely exposed and unable to shoot while walking slowly around using hers. I still don't understand the insistence on limiting her ability so much here, and I would love to see what Loba can do with a smoother active ability. Next in C tier we've got Mirage. Mirage is great for causing chaos in fights, but since the rework, most players have adapted and learned how to deal with him. He doesn't bring anything to the table in terms of team utility, and for that reason he's down in C tier. He's another character that's a ton of fun to play, but doesn't actually do much. A lot of the effort that goes into utilizing his abilities could be better spent just shooting the enemy squad. That's not to say he's useless, and getting kills off of successful bamboozles is really satisfying, so if you're just looking for someone to pick up and have some fun, he's a great choice.
Oh, get F, dude.
Last in C tier we've got Bangalore. Same as the previous C tier characters, Bangalore received a nice little buff with Season 7, cutting down the detonation time on her ult to 6 seconds. I think for the first time in about 3 seasons I actually hit someone with the ult who wasn't already knocked, so that was pretty nice. Her smoke is going to be useful on this map, especially with how many sniper teams we're likely to see, but I still feel like she's not quite doing enough to crack the top half of the legend pool. I appreciate the devs generally being careful about not overbuffing legends, but Bangalore has been underutilized for so long, and I wish they would have dumped a little bit more power into her ultimate this time around. Climbing up to B tier now, we've got all around solid choices. I'm going to start B tier out a little different than the other tiers, and that's because we've got a 2-for-1 bundle here. Crypto and Watson are our first B tiers, and I'm putting them together because of the way they play and how they interact with your squad. Both of these characters are incredibly powerful when playing with a squad that knows how to play around their kit, but if your squad isn't willing to play around you, you're probably actually going to be holding them back. This makes these two tricky to balance, particularly when we're talking about casual play where you don't necessarily know what you're going to be getting from your squad mates. A Wattson setup is incredibly useful for holding down a location, but if your team decides to push as soon as you finish setting it up, it's not doing you or them any good. Crypto has the same issue, where squad mates who know to wait for the drone and EMP to engage are going to have a very easy time winning most fights, but that's never a given in normal play. The best way to sum up these two characters is that if you enjoy their playstyle and have people you can count on, they are both very good picks and some of the strongest legends in the game in many cases. If you tend to play solo or play with people who are aggressive and not willing to wait around, neither of these characters are going to be doing you any favors. Moving on to more traditional rankings now, we have Caustic in B tier. Caustic got a minor tweak with Season 7, his gas damage increased, but it no longer blurs vision. I think this is a healthy change for the game, making his gas more lethal and less obnoxious to deal with. However, he's falling off a bit here due to how wide open this map is and how big the individual POIs are. There's still plenty of great spots for traps and you never want to underestimate his ult, but Caustic won't be nearly as dominant on Olympus as he was on King's Canyon. So many buildings have multiple entry points and windows now that you can't just throw a trap behind a door and completely stall out a fight anymore. I think good Caustic players will continue to thrive, but he's not going to be quite as obnoxious as he was to fight against before, and that lands him firmly in B tier for me. On to A tier now, and we've got legends that are going to be a good pick no matter what. These characters have strong kits that bring a lot to the table no matter your team comp or playstyle. Kicking off A tier is Revenant. I was a little torn on where to put him. He has a similar issue to Crypto and Wattson in that a lot of his potential power is tied into your squad mates playing around you correctly, but rather than it requiring a slow defensive playstyle like those two, you want all-out aggression on Revenant. I think you're way more likely to find that from random squad mates, so for that reason we've got him up in A tier. With a coordinated squad, a Revenant push is absolutely terrifying, so if you and your squad like playing aggressively, he is a great choice. His silence is also incredibly valuable as more and more power gets shifted into abilities, as he remains the only counter to that in the game. Next in the A tier we've got Lifeline. Lifeline has seen a massive resurgence since her rework and has yet to fall off. The ability to automatically revive is insanely strong at every level of the game, whether you have random teammates dying constantly or a coordinated squad sticking together and utilizing the revive shield fully. Lifeline is the top priority to kill anytime I see her in a squad and one of the most valuable squad mates to have in the game. I think the only thing keeping her out of S tier is how valuable mobility is on this map, but you can never go wrong picking Lifeline. Our third A tier legend is Horizon. I have to say I am completely blown away by Horizon. Every legend we've had added to the game so far has felt a little bit underwhelming, but Horizon is different. For one, we finally got a new mobility focused legend. Horizon's active is everything Octane's jump pad should have been. It's manageable, it deploys quickly, and with Horizon's passive that give her more air control and smooth landings, it's so rewarding to use. One of the weird stumbling blocks in Apex is that when you're holding high ground, you're in a great position, but if you push from that high ground, you get stuck in that stagger animation when you land, and that can be fatal. Horizon fixes that, and has a quick vertical escape to get back out of those situations. Her ultimate is incredibly useful for area denial and fight disruption. It's sort of like a Caustic ult that's harder to ignore. Overall, I am a huge fan of Horizon. She's a great addition to the game, and I'm happy to see we've got another character with a high skill ceiling to work with here. Moving on up to S tier, we have the best of the best in Apex. These characters are dominant no matter what, but even more so on Olympus. Starting off, we have Pathfinder. Everyone's favorite robot is back in full swing in Season 7 with the fixes to his grapple. There are spots all over the map that feel like they were designed specifically with grapples in mind, and while I was recording the footage for this video playing every legend, I lost track of how many times I looked at something and just thought, I wish I could grapple off of that right now. Pathfinder is back big time in Season 7, and as a longtime main, I am very excited to polish my grapple on this map. Our second S tier legend is Bloodhound. Bloodhound dominated last season, and not a whole lot has changed since then. Their utility with scans is one of the most valuable actives in the game, and the rapid fire scans you can pop off when your ult is up means you have almost constant intel on enemy squads. With a completely new map as well, Bloodhound is great for providing info on someone that may have dipped away to hide in a spot that you didn't even know about. I don't play a whole lot of Bloodhound myself, but I think they're probably my favorite legend to have locked in as a teammate. If you can manage to face roughly in the right direction and scan, you're providing so much utility to your squad just on that alone. Our Our third S tier legend is Wraith. Wraith is the perennial powerhouse of Apex Legends, and that's certainly not going to change in Season 7. With a wide open map, rotations are more important than ever, so good portals are essential to get across the map safely. I don't have a whole lot else to say about Wraith. I mean, it's Wraith. If you're surprised to see her in S tier, I don't know what to tell you. Despite constant nerfs, she has remained the most played character in the game with one of the highest win rates and has been a top pick at every single level of the game since launch. Who would have guessed that a great kit and the smallest hitbox in the game made a decent character? Our last S tier is Gibraltar. Gibby for me is the king of Season 7. His bubble is the single most valuable tool on this map, allowing you to push through open terrain safely. And it works on the Trident too, so you can make some insane pushes while being completely protected from fire. Mid and long range fights are going to be very common on this map, and Gibby excels at winning those trades with his arm shield, but is perfectly capable of winning fights at close range with his bonus health as well. If you don't mind playing a big boy, then Gibby is the best big boy in the game right now. That wraps up the list for Season 7. Let me know what you think in the comments. I always love seeing what people agree and disagree with. Who is your pick for the strongest legend this season? Because for me, Gibby is pretty hard to beat. Anyways, if you found this video helpful, leave a like, it really helps me out. And if you're new here, consider hitting subscribe. Thanks for watching and stay safe.
And I bring them to the yard. Wait till I get people looking at me from afar. You ain't never been inside of places I've been. We could go to places that